I cannot tell you how many times I've tried to record this. Different locations, different times of day. You know, this eclipse season do be eclipsing. It do be eclipsing. So we're going to talk about everything that's going on in May because there is a lot. If you're seeing this, we are already well into May. You may be wondering what is going on in your life, whether that's what is going on with all the amazing opportunities, changes that are available to you now, or maybe you're also wondering what is going on with all the things that aren't working out, things that are breaking down. What do we do about it all? Well, I'm here to help translate the sky and the things that may occur in our lives that are connected to the things around us. So that said, let's dive into these May horoscopes. And if you don't know me, my name is Julia Kelly. I am an astrologer, and you know, I was about to go on with like other descriptions. I mean, I make content, you know, but aren't we all just human? I think. Okay, so we're going to talk about a lot of different things, and I'm a little bit unhinged, I won't lie. This is the eclipse energy. I am ruled by the moon, which means that I tend to go with the ebbs and flows of life, and I enjoy this. It works for me, but sometimes that may mean that I upload something a bit late, and maybe I will say something a bit unexpected. Who knows? Stick around. That said, this is definitely going to be a video about the transits that we have going on, and I'm also going to talk about the horoscopes for each sign. So you can stay tuned to see what is exactly going on for your sign, and you can read that or watch this for your sun sign, rising sign, moon sign, Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter is as far as I would really go unless you're going through your Saturn return, which means you have Saturn in Aquarius. If that's the case, definitely, you know, check out maybe what's going on there too. But for the most part, your rising sign is going to be the most accurate, meaning it's going to be the most relevant for your actual birth chart based on whole sign houses. So not to get into the technicalities. That said, let's go ahead and talk about what's going on because, yeah, there's so much here in May. If we're coming off of that solar eclipse that happened on April 30th in Taurus, that was a new moon partial eclipse in Taurus, you may be feeling like things are just a little chaotic right now, a little hectic. Could be that there's just a lot going on in your life. Could be that you're having things happen or you're experiencing things that are maybe incongruent with now a new perception you have or a new emotion you have about something. Or let's say that some of you might be having a job or a relationship that's new in your life, but it's making you look at everything else in your life a bit differently. This is the ebb and flow and the pull and push of the eclipse season. So I want to actually just start talking about well, let me first talk about all the things we have going on in May, because truly it is a lot. Right now, we're already in Mercury shadow period. Mercury is going to go retrograde on May 10th, which is coming right up. And you may be watching this just to see what's going to happen there. I'm going to talk about all the transits that may affect your sign. And even bigger than that, we have Jupiter entering Aries. And this is happening on the same day. This is happening on May 10th. So on May 10th, we have in the middle of eclipse season, building up to the full lunar eclipse in Scorpio on May 15th, that we have really the moon right now is like building up to that full moon in Scorpio. You can feel it if you can. Some of you are like, I can't feel anything. That's okay too. That's also a version of this eclipse season. Emotions, who are they? I don't know her, okay? Anyway, so that said, we have a lot of things going on right now. Jupiter entering Aries on May 10th, Mercury going retrograde in Gemini on May 10th, and then the full lunar eclipse in Scorpio on May 15th. And we have a lot of transits around this time as well, like the Sun conjunct the North Node in Taurus, and some, you know, sextiles, and then building up for Mars entering Aries and Venus entering Taurus at the end of the month. So there's a lot of things that are really leading us to this alignment, and I want to talk about how that is, because if you're watching this, you are probably, well, let's just, I will make an assumption here, but if you're watching this, you know, you're probably looking for some kind of guidance, or maybe just wondering what's going on, or maybe you're just curious about me. I don't know. That said, there's probably something going on in your life that you're like, well, you know, what's going on in the stars, because that is, again, why we can use astrology to just help navigate the timing. It's like, if you feel like you need to rush into something right now, take a breath, because we're building up to a full moon in Scorpio. And so if you feel like there's things going on in your life and you're like, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do. I have to do this, I have to do that. take a breath, because we have a lot going on right now. And some of you may feel that way. Some of you may feel honestly quite the opposite. You may feel that you're really nestled into this Taurus energy of this solar eclipse. And in that case, a lot of you might be feeling very exalted in your own life, because that eclipse was exalted by Venus in Pisces, which essentially means that it was really magnified. It's like, solar eclipses, and I wanted to touch on this kind of building into the themes that we may see in May, because the eclipse season is really the main theme here. Again, that April 30th eclipse to the May 15th eclipse. So in between this time, we're really dealing with changes in light, changes in seasons, changes in the cycles that animals live by. And we are animals, in case you needed the reminder. So there's a lot of things that affect us as humans too in the cycles of our life. And that is really what eclipse season is about, is understanding how there's a time for everything. There's a cycle for everything. Nothing is truly permanent. And emotions, for instance, are not permanent. I want to talk about a lot of things with this eclipse season, but I wanted to really just touch on what is eclipse season. What does this really mean? Whether it's in Taurus and Scorpio, like this eclipse season, or whether it's in any sign, like last year in the tropical zodiac, we are looking at Gemini and Sagittarius for the past eclipse season. Well, now the nodes have shifted to Taurus and Scorpio. And so we're looking at this change in what these eclipses may mean throughout the world and in your personal life. But what we're also looking at is like, what does it really mean? Like from a higher level, like Pisces point of view, what's the bigger picture? And so I wanted to talk about what this even means. If you're like, what is an eclipse even? Like, what is an eclipse? Well, first rule to a solar eclipse, don't look at the sun. I'm telling you too late. So if you looked at the sun on the April 30th eclipse, I hope your eyes are okay. The solar eclipses are about light expanding. It's kind of like having a wider aperture on your camera lens, and you can let more light in. And that's essentially what's happening when we have the solar eclipse, because it's a new moon. And so it's the moon connecting with the sun, but it's doing it conjunct to the nodes, the lunar nodes of the moon. And so it's expanding the light. And at the same time, as this is happening, this is where we see the effects of that changing, again, the animals around us, cycles around us, things around us. And that's where we have to understand that, like, there might be changes in your life too. And so the emotional changes, or just the changes that can come with eclipse season, have a lot to do with what this means on that deeper level, where we look at, let's say, the sign that it's in, the degrees, the duration, and other things that are happening. For instance, the fact that we have Jupiter going into Aries on May 10th, along with Mercury retrograde in between this eclipse season, this is a very rare eclipse season in that sense. And when we're also talking about then those light dynamics, so the solar eclipse is expanding the light. So let's talk about what that would mean for you in your life, and like the metaphorical meaning of this, which we look at through astrology, of course. So solar eclipses are about things being revealed. It's like you literally have more light to see something. So you might have more information that comes to the surface. It's like maybe you were waiting to hear back from someone and you hear back from someone. Maybe you were waiting to have an understanding of something and you had to finish something else in order to get there, like finishing a book in order to know the ending, right? The solar eclipses can do that. So because this is the first eclipse season with Taurus and Scorpio, full eclipse season, this is where we're really going to understand, like, what's the theme? What is the thing coming to the surface? What's the new information? What are you meant to see right now? This is not necessarily the time to take all the action. And I wanted to open with this because when we're talking about Jupiter entering Aries and also Mercury retrograde, there's a lot of action happening. Like, in fact, with those happening simultaneously, it's showing us that, wait a minute, maybe we don't need to take action right away. We just need to look at all the information. And so that was one of the things I wanted to just kind of talk about going into this horoscope. Whenever you're seeing this, truly is the right time because of all the transits we have going on right now. There's just a lot that, can be translated. And you might notice that, again, whenever you're watching this, there might just be a specific message that is here for you. So anyway, I just wanted to share that because this eclipse season is going to be very personal for a lot of people. But I want to talk about the themes that we might see. And going back to first talking about the understanding of light dynamics in eclipse season. So we have the solar eclipse that was kicking this eclipse season off on April 30th, and then this is building up for a May 15th full lunar eclipse in Scorpio. So that sounds as intense as it is. Right before this eclipse, we have Friday the 13th coming up. So it's also, again, like right after Jupiter enters Aries. I'm like smiling, but like honestly, there's probably going to be a lot of chaos going on. Right now, it's kind of already going on. You know, we see like, not to jump into this too much right now, I may talk about this later, but like we're seeing like the Roe v. Wade trying to be overturned right now. Like these are the kind of things that we're going to see with this Mercury retrograde, the Johnny Depp case going on. Like those things are the themes that we'll see play out during this retrograde. It's like these events are also showing us bigger concepts that we need to be looking at, or that it's kind of like showing us things that we need to see. Again, solar eclipse, what do we need to see in order to make an educated guess or the best decision based on what we know? But it doesn't mean rushing into action. It's like a court case. You can't rush it. You cannot rush a court case. You have to take steady action to do something. And that is what we're really seeing with the North Node solar eclipse in Taurus kicking this season off. So we're building up to this full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio, right? And, you know, this is going to be a full moon, and it's going to be very, very bright. It's going to light things up in a different way, meaning we had the solar eclipse during the day, which it's like at nighttime, that's a dark moon, meaning you can't see the moon. But with the full moon, you can see the moon during the night. And so there's this sense of like this illumination during the day. It's like things being seen in plain sight. And then there's this side of it that is like seeing the information that's hidden, seeing the information that comes out only at night. There's a sense of like understanding that there's certain things that have not been revealed yet. It's like evidence has not been revealed yet. There may be some other things that come up domestically or politically, like when we're looking at law and tangibility and understanding that certain things need to be rewritten on a fundamental level. It's like how can we continue to allow cycles to play out that you know, put people in certain situations or put ourselves in certain situations. That's really a big theme with this eclipse season, is understanding how cycles in our lives can either create growth and abundance, North Node and Taurus, or they can create absolute destruction and torment and violence and hurt and death. You know, that is the South Node in Scorpio. And so I want to just really, again, like talk about this as a way to understand the deeper themes that might be going on in your life, and just so we can understand that, you know, things that we may see right now may feel very intense. They may be very intense. You may feel very intensely about them, but everything is in a cycle. Everything is temporarily permanent. That's something I've been kind of coining with this eclipse season, and we'll see again more of this into November, but kind of understanding what temporarily permanent means. It's kind of like that when we feel stuck in a state of mind, sometimes we can carry that state of mind with us, but as soon as we release that state of mind, which isn't easy, and if you feel like you're trying to be this perfect person or do this perfect thing and it's not working, hey, you're not alone. No one's perfect. Like, even though that can be a temporary vision of perfection, we can admit perfection for a moment, right? We're not perfect. That's not what we're here, I think, on this planet to experience. I don't think we're here to experience perfection. And if it is, it's in nature. You know, it's in symbolism. It's in God. And anyway, the point that we're really kind of, I think, seeing, or that, you know, I suggest to kind of look at with this eclipse season is like, what are the things in your life, the cycles in your life that are bringing you into the light versus the ones that are keeping you hidden? What is the information that you've yet to share with the world? And is it something that you're not sharing out of guilt, out of fear, out of shame? Because guess what? That is South Node in Scorpio to a T. Like, if there was ever an embarrassing moment, it is the South Node in Scorpio. It's like just wishing you hadn't done something or you regret something and just feeling the guilt of that and the shame of that. But it's like, do you let those emotions carry you into the next moment, or do you release those behind you and move forward into alignment, knowing that everything that has had to be released is leading you into something that's more abundant? And I know it's easy to maybe say that, or like, you know, coming from, you may look at me and have an assumption, if you know, if you don't know me, that let's say I come from like a lot of money, or I have a lot of access to things, and even just being a white woman, you know, I'm privileged. That is true. Not all of that I'm a white woman is true. But you can't look at me and see the grief I've experienced, or the struggles I've faced, or the lack of privilege I've had in cases, or abundance I've had. And you know, it's like, that's what we have to also understand with this eclipse season, is that it's meant to change the way that we see things, and I think specifically the way that we see people. When we're talking about like South Node in Scorpio, there's a detachment from emotions, there's a detachment from feeling. And the North Node in Taurus is everything that is felt. It's like you can't escape the sensation of life. It's like you can't escape your senses. Yes, you can try and numb them, you can try and turn them off, you can do whatever you can to try and escape your own sensations. But eventually we have to realize that all sensation is meant to be felt. And that means that, you know, pain is a sensation. It's like some people like love getting tattoos just for the pain of it, like the release that you get from feeling it, you know? Or like working out is like that, you know. It's like, I love yoga for that reason, and yoga is a great remedy right now if you need it. I've had to remind myself to be, you know, doing yoga. But South Node in Scorpio, North Node in Taurus, do some yoga, feel your body. I'm going to talk a lot about that in this video, probably. Not too much, don't worry, but a little bit. Because it's a big theme with Uranus involved in this eclipse season as well. And so we're going to talk about all of that. But I wanted to, again, just really touch on the fact that like this eclipse season is about illumination, and all eclipse seasons are. But when we're talking about the like tangibility of Taurus and Scorpio, it's like, it's our everyday world. It's like, you can't take the mind away from the body. You cannot take the mind away from the body. No matter how much technology wants us to take the mind away from the body, you cannot do it. It's like you put you put on VR goggles, you're gone. Where'd you go? You know, I don't know. I have mixed opinions on some virtual reality stuff. I think that the technology itself can be used for many things. And this is a theme that we're going to see with this eclipse season. So when we're kind of looking at this contrast of light and dark, and this is what I wanted to come back to, is there's going to be this information in your life revealed, in our society that's revealed, and some of it's going to be very obvious. It's like things that you know, but you don't maybe feel on a deeper level. It's like seeing something is not the same as feeling it, or knowing that it's true. Or it's like seeing something online is not the same as experiencing it, but sometimes it can feel that way. But the other side of this is, again, this full lunar eclipse, which is really the moment, and that's going to be where we see the things that have been hidden. It's like you finally have that moment, you're like, aha, I get it. And some of you are going to feel really amazing with this eclipse. It's going to feel like an emotional release. Some of you may find that you have a conversation that you've been needing to have for a very long time, and that's going to be a great experience. Some of you may also find that this is just a very powerful time to feel what you need to feel, and I'm going to really talk about that here in a moment. But the other side of this is that full eclipse is really about, again, illuminating what we can't see. So it can also be like the side of yourself that you haven't seen, something that you've done that you maybe forgot about, like seeing something from someone else's perspective. And I invite you to do that right now, because this is what this eclipse season is really here to do. It is here to help us change our mind. It is here to help us see something from a different perspective. It's like, if you want to change these things in your life, but you're holding on to this set mindset, they're never going to match up. You have to be able to, you know, adapt, but it can be very difficult to do that. And I wanted to talk about this with the eclipse season, because this is the theme that I really am seeing already. Again, I'm posting this a bit into the eclipse season because I was, you know, it was eclipsing me. But I'm seeing this as a big theme right now, and I think that this is going to be something that we see continuously from now until November, is extremes, okay? So understanding the extremes of both sides of life. It's like when you have everything that you've ever wanted, how can you know that it's everything you wanted unless you had what you didn't want? Truly, it's like contrast is the way in which we see the world. How can you see the moon if there's not enough darkness out to illuminate it? You have to have the dark and the light. The solar eclipse is kind of like everything coming together, everything working out, like things being so joyous because you can finally see a clear answer. Again, it's like some people may have felt that the solar eclipse was a really amazing moment, and it can be. It can be such an amazing moment for people because it's like you finally see that thing you were looking for. You finally have the answer. But I also, again, wanted to share how that solar eclipse again in Taurus on April 30th was partial, and it's leading up to this full lunar eclipse. And again, in between that, we got a Mercury retrograde and Jupiter entering Aries. So this is not like every other eclipse season, which is again why some of you may feel that it's like you had the answer, you saw something, you're like, yes, I'm so excited. This is the job, this is the place, this is the relationship. But then maybe there's something that has still been yet to be revealed. It has not been revealed yet. And that's what the solar eclipse is going, I'm sorry, that's what the lunar eclipse is going to do in Scorpio. It's going to reveal what you haven't seen. And so that's why it's really important to pay attention to what is going on at this time rather than reacting. This is the time to observe rather than absorbing. Now, this may be difficult though, because again, we're dealing with Taurus and Scorpio, and this is about feeling, it's about sensation, right? And so I wanted to come back to this idea again of like the light and the dark, and the what I really see as the theme is these extremes. So it's like the solar eclipse can be like, you have everything you wanted, congratulations. And then the lunar eclipse is like, but it comes with all these things. It's kind of like getting into a contract to be like, I'm so excited. And then it's like, you have all these clauses you have to follow. Sometimes you don't really know what you're signing up for until you read the fine print. And that's really what we're going to see as a theme with this eclipse season in general, in May going into November, like leading up to November, which I know it's like the whole year, but the summer is really about understanding that the fine print matters. Making an impulsive decision can really screw you later on. Not paying attention to something can really screw you later on. And I don't say that to put any fear into you or like worry anyone who's watching this. It's not about that. It's not about being fearful. It's about trusting. But there is a sense of understanding what fear is, understanding what consequences are. And consequences are different than fear. Consequences are real reactions in our reality. And fear is more of a filtered reaction to something that doesn't have to be the way that it is, right? Because perception truly can change in a moment. And that's what we're seeing with this eclipse season, is that it's inviting you to change your perception. It's inviting you to look at something from a different angle. Sometimes you need more light to be revealed in order to see what you need to see. But sometimes you also, again, have to wait to see the full picture. It's like if someone only paints half of a picture, would you rather that, or would you rather the artist finishes the picture and then you can look at the whole thing, right? You want to see the whole movie. You want to see the whole photo. You want to see the whole picture. So that's kind of what we understand with eclipse seasons, is that you do want to be patient. And again, I know some of you are probably going to be watching this like, well, I wish you posted this sooner because I've already made a decision that was impulsive. It's okay. Don't worry. Things are going to work themselves out as they do. But sometimes you do have to accept that the reality you're living is the one that you're in right now. Presence is everything. And I know that this is such like a cliche thing nowadays almost. I think so, because it's like when you hear it so much, it just becomes cliche, right? Like be present, be in the moment. But I think that there's this presence that we need to have right now. And that's what we're really going to see, I think, with this eclipse season, is it's like, if you are trying to take your own feelings away from your own life, it's not going to work. It's like, we've all probably had to live, I say we all, I don't know, but most of us have probably had to work a job that you hated. You didn't like it. It took away, something in your life that you loved, like as in like, time with your family or your pride, whatever it is, like signing up for a job in the world that we live in right now. It can require signing away some of your own, signing away your freedom in a lot of ways, like, working for, time, all that stuff. But then there's also this side of it that's like having to act or work or be or show up a certain way that may restrict who you really are. It's kind of like if you can't work somewhere because you have tattoos, it's like that means that you are then having to live a life where you can't be yourself. You can't be yourself. And to have this world where other people are putting their own values onto you, that is what we're seeing a lot right now with this eclipse season as well. Of course, again, like with Roe v. Wade, like being, the possibility of it being overturned and that something being done under the surface. Again, that's what we're going to see blow up around the 15th. There may be, something big around the 15th, maybe also leading up to the 22nd of May is when we have the Sun conjunct the North Node, which can be a big moment in media too. But that said, it's like we're looking at the bigger or we're being asked to look at the bigger picture of these things, understanding how like things that are written and signed, sealed, delivered, like if you do them in a rush, but if you're signing yourself up for something that's long term and that is maybe going to set you up worse than you are now, it's like these decisions matter. And a lot of people may be forced to make some decisions right now. Maybe you have to move, you have to change jobs, you have to figure out how you're going to make money or something. These are the unfortunate sides to eclipse seasons, and especially this eclipse season, because it's dealing a lot with the world and with finances and the financial industry and technology. So there's a lot of things that are uncertain right now. And that is one of the things that happens with every eclipse season, is that change sometimes happens in a moment. You can't predict it. It's like you can't predict a breakup, or you can't predict, here I am being an astrologer, but you can't predict things exactly as they're going to happen. You can maybe sometimes get it pretty accurate, right? But there's a sense of just knowing that there's going to be a change, or just not knowing sometimes and having to just go through the changes of life. And that is really what we're seeing with this eclipse season being a big theme, is that there's a need to understand where you are at in the cycle of your life, what needs to change, and what is already naturally, inevitably changing in your life. Because again, with eclipse seasons, it just happens. It's like the sun's just going to do its thing. The moon's just going to do its thing. That's why I love astrology. They're just doing their thing. But it's like in our lives, when we're thinking about this on a personal level, where do you have free will in your life? Where can you choose to see something from a different perspective? But also, how do you know how to still show up? Like sometimes that's the hard part, is it's like, how do you show up in your daily life when you've already signed up for something? It's like you have to go to work, you have to go to school, you have to live in this place. But how do you also change your life at the same time? And manifestation and like visualization and like quantum jumping and stuff, this stuff has been talked about a lot recently online, which I think is cool because, it has a lot to do with Jupiter being in Pisces. The Jupiter-Neptune conjunction was really when that was like at a height of being talked about, and all for the reasons like that being talked about online is what that conjunction was. In a lot of ways, it's like people realizing that, we create our realities. There's this energy that's here. What does it mean? Talking about this stuff. But then there's also this idea of like, where's the difference between where you want to be and where you are? And how do you be okay with where you're at? And this is where like, if you've studied some philosophy, maybe you're familiar with, for instance, in Buddhism, it's taught that desire can cause all of your problems. And if you can release desire, then maybe you won't have as much pain and suffering. Even though suffering is inevitable, maybe you won't have as much of it. And this is something that I really think we can kind of look at to understand this eclipse season through the lens of that like idea. Because if you're constantly trying to reach for something that is in front of you, but you have not felt what's already with you, it's like it's always going to be this cycle of wanting more, it's like wanting to get to that North Node in Taurus, which is like peace, comfort, abundance. Like again, that solar eclipse was exalted in Pisces. So meaning Venus was in Pisces exalted and it ruled the eclipse. And so for a lot of people, it's like, you may have seen a lot of money come in. You may have seen, you got something you wanted, something worked out. It was like, yes. Well, the other side to that again is just understanding that it's like when you sign up for something new, when you sign up for new reality, it comes with these things that are unseen because you haven't experienced them yet. And sometimes we just have to, I think, like be present in our own lives enough to understand that where you're at is where you need to be. And this can be very difficult again if like you're not in a good situation, or you don't think you're in a good situation, you don't feel like you're where you want to be. But this is what we have to understand with this eclipse season, is that it's all about feeling. And I really mean that. It's like the Gemini Sagittarius eclipse seasons, those weren't all about feeling. Those were about thinking. It's like, what's the mind have to say about this? But the Taurus and Scorpio eclipses, and again, we're just starting this first eclipse season. The first eclipse we actually had was on November 19th in Taurus, and that was building us up for this eclipse season. That was November 19th, 2021, but it wasn't a full eclipse season. This is the full eclipse season. So although it deals with looking at things from a bigger picture, we have to be careful not to get too much into our minds right now. That's a really big theme with this eclipse season, is that it's about the body, it's about the environment, it's about the nervous system. And this is what we're going to see as a big theme in May. A lot of people are going to experience this, especially if you're an earth placement. So if you're a Taurus, Capricorn, Virgo, there's this feeling, you know, having Uranus in Taurus and connected to Capricorn and Virgo placements, and also squaring all fixed signs, so or opposite Scorpio and squaring Leo and Aquarius. So fixed signs and Capricorn, Virgo, Taurus, you guys might feel like you've really had to learn how to handle your nervous system over the past few years, like not just this year, but over the past few years, maybe even past 10 years, like the time in which you've been intertwined with technology, or, you know, society's been very connected to technology since the age of the internet really started, early 2000s. Like, this is a Jupiter cycle we're seeing come back around. You know, Saturn in Aquarius was the internet's Saturn return. And so Saturn is still in Aquarius right now. We just had the Pluto return in the United States, essentially saying that there's a lot of major changes going on. And if you're feeling like your body is not able to keep up with your mind, it's because the theme is asking you to slow down. It's asking you to slow down. This was something that I actually shared a video on my TikTok and on my Instagram, so maybe you saw it. I was like, you know, slow down there, because I needed that message in the moment, and well, everyone else was also being a little crazy, but I needed that message. The transits were like, yeah, we need to go slower, and this is something that I'm seeing as like a huge theme. It's a lot of really big themes going on because of all the transits right now, but this is really a big theme for this month, is like, slow down. It's Taurus season. We are not meant to go fast. Eclipse season and Jupiter entering Aries and Mercury retrograde in Gemini, it's going to feel chaotic. You're going to feel like you have to make a decision very quick. Don't make the quick decision. Don't do it quickly. Think about it. Take your time. Take your time. Because if you don't take your time, Mercury retrograde is going to force you to slow down, or it's going to cause you to make some mistakes. And with Jupiter going through Aries, you know, this is going to start this year, and then it's going to play out next year in 2022 or in 2023. So with Jupiter being in Aries, it's the first sign of the zodiac, and it's about fire, ignition, igniting. It's a cardinal sign. So a lot of people are ready for new beginnings. You're ready for a new start. Again, new job. It's like new relationship, new this, new that, new this. We want this new, okay? But at the same time, we have eclipse season that's like, you cannot go that fast because you're going to run into the same wall, or it's going to be a worse wall. Don't make the same accident. Don't make the same mistake. And I really, you know, I don't say that to really be your mom's horoscope, be a mother right now, anyone that needs to hear that. But like, I really say that as someone who wants to share, you know, things to help anyone watching. And there's going to be things that go on right now this eclipse season, and not just May 15th. Like, if you're watching this at the end of May, that will be coming down from the full moon and leading up to a new moon in Gemini, which is also going to be very important because it's going to deal with this eclipse season kind of ramifications of it, but it's also going to deal with the Mercury retrograde. So it's really asking you to get into your body and to feel what is going on. When you are able to feel something, you're able to release it. And when we're talking about like full moons and lunar eclipses, it is about releasing what no longer serves you. A lot of people are going to be needing to release things that have been blockages in your life for a very long time. Again, I had talked about kind of those extremes there. It's like, that is really what this eclipse season asks us to look at, is what are those extreme attachments? What are those What are the things that you're holding on to? And maybe it's that you are wanting to hold on to this feeling instead of actually allowing yourself to feel. Like a feeling is not a thought. It's not something that you're imagining. It's something that you're feeling. It's in your body. It's like if you're in this job or this relationship or this environment and you're like, it's great, it's everything I wanted, but you don't feel good, you're going to know. This eclipse season will show you. It will tell you that you do not feel good. Your body will tell you. That's why it's really important to listen to your body right now in this eclipse season, because again, not only is it Taurus and Scorpio, so we're dealing with like sensation. Scorpio is a water sign and Taurus is an earth sign. And so it's really about feeling and grounding, but also allowing the flow of things. And when we're talking about, again, the South Node in Scorpio and the moon in Scorpio, specifically a full moon in Scorpio, this is not the most comfortable thing. It's like having to feel those uncomfortable emotions. It's kind of like going outside in the early morning when it's really cold. And at first it's like, oh, but then you're like, ah, this is nice. Embracing change right now and trusting that, you know, whatever's changing in your life, kind of surrendering to it, being in that North Node energy, really of being like, everything is going to work out. Everything's okay. You know, things are going to be aligned. Things are going to make sense. I don't have all the information yet, maybe. That's really what can allow that fear to be released. It's kind of like understanding that you can't be on one extreme without the other. Like if you're allowing yourself to get to an extreme of like, everything has to be perfect, well, then the other side of that is that nothing is perfect. Nothing's going to work out. And we live in a world of contrast. And this is what I think this Taurus Scorpio season, again, is really trying to show us, not only this eclipse season, but this Taurus season until Scorpio season in November. So like May, like right now, it's really showing us a lot that, again, is going to play out through November. One of the themes that, again, I mentioned with these extremes, it's like, if you're looking for this extreme happiness, extreme pleasure, like if you want to immerse yourself completely in something and lose touch with another sensation in your life, it's like if you're trying to get pleasure so you can escape pain, guess what? That pain is going to come back full force. This is where a lot of people might have seen breakups or major events happen in relationships that were there to reveal something to you about how you show up in a relationship, something with codependency, addiction, abuse. Not being aware of these things, it's like that's when Mars energy can be a little violent, it can be abrasive, it can be a little dangerous. And this is the full moon in Scorpio energy that we're building up to again, where it's like if you're making a rash decision, it can be irrational. It can not make sense. Doing something in the moment because you're angry or you have these residual emotions, those can be what cause sabotage. And this is often what does cause sabotage in our own lives, is not being aware of how we show up, how we contribute to situations. You know, it's easy to point the finger at other people, which Saturn in Aquarius has been loving people pointing the finger at other people. But what we have to really look at is how we play the role in our own relationships, in our own life. And this is what the South Node in Scorpio is here to do. It's here to bring these emotions to the surface. It's here to show us how we need to feel, essentially, not like how we need to feel, but like showing us that if you need to feel anger, you need to feel it. If you need to feel sadness, you need to feel it. And it's not always easy to feel, but that is what allows that release. Hanging on to it is what is keeping us or keeping you or keeping anyone in a state of anxiety, despair, anger. It's like if you are unable to be angry in a moment and then be happy in the next, then you're hanging on to one of those emotions. Maybe you're hanging on to the happiness and you're like, I never want to be angry. I don't want to be sad. I used to be like that. Trust me, I'm not like that anymore. But when you allow yourself to actually just feel, you're like, oh my gosh, wait, this is what life is meant to be. I can be happy and then I can be angry and then I can be sad. When we're thinking about the judgments of others, again, Saturn in Aquarius right now, it can feel like there's this finger, this pointing down finger saying, you're good, you're bad, you're good enough, you're bad, you're not good enough. And when you feel like there's this finger looking at you, it can make you feel like you aren't allowed to experience or express your full capacity and range of emotion. We are going to experience this feeling right now of like air energy and fire energy, and simultaneous again to the earth and the water of eclipse season. And so earth and water, it's asking us to be grounded, to take our time, to go with the flow. Air and fire is like quick, quick, quick. We got to make it quick. We got to make it work. It's got to go. It's got to function. It's like, again, needing a vacation, needing something for your health, but having to go to work. It's like, it blows my mind how the health system has yet to figure out how to allow people who work full-time jobs to get to their doctor's appointments. Like, people can't afford to take full days off work, and so they don't get to go to a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment, and it's a mess, you know. That is one example of the kind of systems that we're going to see. And I haven't talked as much about this, but there's a systematic approach that is kind of needed right now as we're going through this eclipse season. And this has to do with, again, that air and fire energy, because as we have Mercury retrograde activated in Gemini, it will be sextile to Jupiter in Aries. And so what that means is that those two planets are going to be connected in May and going into June, and they're going to be working, moving away from each other. Mercury is going to be going backwards to Taurus, and Jupiter is going to be moving full force forward in Aries for the next couple of months. And Jupiter is a planet of growth, expansion, and it's in Aries, again, the first sign of the zodiac. Well, Mercury is mind, communication, technology, and it's going to be in Gemini, which is quick thinking. It rules Mercury, or Mercury rules Gemini, but then it moves back into Taurus. And when Mercury's back in Taurus, it's about slowing down, slowing our thoughts down, time slow, like needing to slow down. And so that is why, again, I speak a lot about this right now, kind of going through this eclipse season, building up until the end of May, going into June. This is the time to go slow. This is the time to be aware of the decisions you're making, of the judgments you're making, of feeling that, you know, if you are in a situation that is very difficult, like the solution may be right in front of you. The solar eclipse, again, is showing that some things are in plain sight. It doesn't mean that it's easy, though. It doesn't mean that it's easy to just take the solution, go for it, you know, change your life, do something differently. That's the hard part. And that's what we really see with this full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio, is that the difficult part to eclipse seasons is realizing that you're going to be gaining something. There's something that you're seeing, you're receiving, you're moving on from. But then this requires releasing a mindset. It's like there's only so much space in a room for furniture. There's only so much space on a canvas for painting. You can only have so much space in certain areas. And so you have to be aware of what's taking up your space. And with this eclipse season, it's like physical sensation is real and it's important. So if you are experiencing something in your life that's causing a lot of stress, that's causing a lot of issues, and it's causing you to not have as much space in other areas of your life, well, maybe that's what is going to be the main focus for you this season. And again, I'm going to get into the horoscopes here for each sign, but for everybody, it's like, there's a theme here of getting into the body, slowing yourself down, and realizing what is a priority. Realizing that certain things are going to feel like big sirens going off, and it's like, oh my gosh, we have to take care of this right away. We have to make a decision right away. But be careful of that, because that's going to be the fear and the panic and the anxiety that can be here with Jupiter entering Aries, with Mercury retrograde, and with this eclipse season, full moon in Scorpio. It's like, yeah, Mars is going to be ruling Jupiter, and Mars is also going to be ruling this full moon eclipse. And this is also going to be when Mars is preparing to enter Aries, but it has not entered Aries yet. It's at the end of Pisces, which can be a bit messy. So it's like decisions that are made right now can end up being kind of messy. So that's why it's best to just observe rather than absorbing everything, feeling like something's an immediate emergency, that you have to respond to something. You know, some people are going to have real emergencies, and you got to take care of what you got to take care of. That's this eclipse season. But what you can control to your best effort is the way that you react to things going on. And that is really what we can allow, where we can see a lot of growth with this eclipse season is, you know, it's coming out of Pisces energy from Jupiter in Pisces, Mars being in Pisces still, Venus was in Pisces. So there's this feeling of coming out of this Piscean energy, which is seeing things from a bigger picture, getting all the information, but maybe not having space to make a move yet, time to make a decision, whatever it may be. Well, now that it was Aries season, and now that we're in Taurus season, but Jupiter's entering Aries, eclipse season, there's this feeling of like, okay, now I got to move. Now I got to make a decision. Now I got to do something. And a lot of you might be feeling like you have to kind of rush a project, finish something quickly again. But what I say as a final note here with these transits, specifically in May, is like, this is not the time to rush. This is the time to take your time, be aware, observe things, because if you make a decision now, it's like if you sign on the dotted line of something that you don't really care for, you don't value, you don't want, it may cause you more harm than good, even if it seems like a necessity. There may be a better solution that comes later, especially when Mars enters Aries and when Venus enters Taurus at the end of the month. Mars is in Aries on May 24th and Venus is in Taurus on May 28th. This is going to be a much more aligned time for people. And I wanted to kind of get all that eclipse stuff out of the way and talk about that in depth, because truly, whenever you're watching this again, you may just be like, oh my gosh, May is a nightmare. Like there's things going up and down and crazy. I don't know which way to turn. It's okay. Again, you're not alone if your emotions are all over the place. Allow yourself to feel things. Realize that if you want this drastic heightened experience, you're going to get the other side of it too. Be okay with having things be, you know, in between. Be okay with not having what someone else has. Be okay with having what only you have right now, because the end of May is going to be much more aligned for people. If you need to wait for something, wait until the end of May, and even into June when Mercury is direct. But I wanted to talk about Uranus again being involved here. So with these eclipses, the North Node, the South Node, they are being conjunct in a wide conjunction with Uranus, the planet of technology, rebellion, and the nervous system. It has a lot to do with the breath, and Mercury in Gemini also has a lot to do with the breath. When we see Jupiter enter Aries and when we see Mercury go retrograde, we're probably, to be honest, looking at it from like society, if you are curious, you know, there's probably going to be more COVID cases coming back to the surface or something else, and like something that could cause, I don't know, something that could cause something to go viral, and maybe not in the best way, because there may be some more mask mandates coming back in places, because Jupiter is about expansion, and Aries is also very expansive in that sense. And so things could spread quickly. There could be something like that. Mercury going retrograde, dealing with the lungs. It could look like more COVID cases. You know, hopefully not, but that is definitely what it's looking like. Jupiter's not going to be retrograde again until the end of July though. So it might be like COVID cases and people and restrictions are trying to be enforced in places, but people are rebelling. And this is because we have, you know, Uranus involved. So because Uranus is the planet of technology and rebellion and the nervous system, a lot of people, again, are going to feel that they might be in fight or flight right now. This is something I'm dealing with. I'm like, gotta calm down. The breath is the key to getting out of that. Inhale, exhale. But the breath is the key. But when we're thinking about like the body and again how we feel, Taurus and Scorpio needs us to feel. When the body is going through trauma, it will often go into fight or flight, and it will not feel the emotion. So it can actually go into a paralysis even. And that emotion is then stored in the body, like stored for later. But if you never process your emotion, like this is why therapy can be very good, or EDMR, I think that's the right way it's pronounced. It's like tapping therapy or like tapping. This is helpful for emotional release of stored emotions that, like, if you were in a situation in fight or flight, you couldn't feel your emotion. Well, you have to feel it eventually. And so again, this season, it's like things like that may come to the surface, and a lot of people may feel overwhelmed by the emotion. And so some people may be like, you know, if there's restrictions in your life, there may be a lot of rebellion right now. We may see a lot of rebellion. It's like people being like, no, I'm not going to put up with it anymore. I'm not going to put up with the system, you know, protests that are probably very important to have right now. There's going to be this kind of going against systems. And this is the what we're dealing with Uranus, and also just the Mercury retrograde happening at the same time. It's kind of like realizing that, like, if technology doesn't work for us, we have to make it work. It's like if the government isn't working for us, we have to make it work. Governments get overturned in countries all the time, and you know, there's a lot of heightened emotions right now around legislation and around power throughout the world. And this is going to really be even further exemplified during this eclipse season. So there could be things happen that we are going to use as examples to understand important decisions that need to be made in legislation. Or for instance, one of the things that I'm really seeing as a theme, I don't know if we're going to see as much of it this eclipse season. It's probably going to actually be more in November, but this is what I hope we start to see. Gosh, if this doesn't happen soon, I'm going to have to get into law or something. Is technology and law. It's like we do not have, I actually took a class on this in college called The Ethics of Technology, and it was probably the most interesting class I've ever taken in my life. And I see it coming to life right now, because what it really studied is how their technology has caused more deaths than like anything. Like the Teslas right now that we're seeing causing deaths and accidents, like that is a prime example. There may be some laws and legislation with Tesla specifically, with Elon Musk specifically, with Twitter even, and like technology, like there's not really enough legislation around how we use tech, what is legal. It's like social media sites create the precedent. Technology is like contractual. It's like technology will be created, and then that itself usually does not have any kind of guide or legislation, rules to follow, civil ethics, until there's a problem. It's like until it causes an issue. But what was really shown to me in this course that I took, I guess now it's like 6 years ago or something, is that there's not enough legislation in the world. Like there's individual organizations that have tried to, for instance, create like codes of ethics in coding. So like coding developers have like certain ethics that they're supposed to follow, for instance, but there's nothing that's like set in stone that says, for instance, like it's like seeing all the data, consumer data stuff. Like these are the things that it's like there's not a problem until you know the problem, but the problem's already there. What has to happen is we have to have legislation and people, who are able to create systems that can actually help people, that are actually there for the consumer and not for the money, not for the corporation, not for the person making, the win when on this side of the equation, when the other people are suffering on this side. It's like, how do we get to a place where like this person's suffering doesn't cause this person's win? And, I'm talking about a lot of big things here. I probably piss some people off, but I just, wanted to share a few different ways of kind of understanding some of the things going on right now, because I share this from a very personal level, but this stuff makes me really mad. I get really upset about, things going on in society that I especially feel like I can't control, like, seeing things that I can't control. This is a feeling a lot of people might feel right now, is it's like there's this anger. It's like, what do you do with the anger? How do you put it into action? Mars is about action, and it also is about anger. It's like, how do we take our anger and put it into action? Well, violence isn't the answer, okay? I'm gonna just say that. It's not the answer. That's what we're getting away from with the South Node in Scorpio, hopefully, is realizing that like when you hurt others, it only hurts yourself. It's like that line in Gangster's Paradise, like, why are we so blind to see that the ones we hurt are you and me? It's like those are the things that we have to look at right now, is like, how are our own decisions hurting us, our consumer decisions? This is something we all have to look at. I'm talking about it, but I'm doing this in my own life right now. Like, how are consumer decisions that we make affecting other people? How are the distractions in our life affecting other people? It's like, if you're celebrating over here and someone's suffering over here, like, where's the in between? And I'm not saying that, again, to say that you have to feel guilt for things you can't control, but rather to understand now, what can we control? That's a big question, is like, especially again with this lunar eclipse illuminating like the Mars energy, it's like seeing the bad, but also seeing where we have power. How can we take action? Where do we have power? And this is why a lot of people may notice that this eclipse season leading up to November causes a lot of changes in the way that you value things, in your priorities, in your morals, in your ethics. Realizing that like maybe you don't want to be with certain people or around certain people because they don't share certain values with you. And at the same time, understanding that like that is the contrast of life, is that there's going to be differences. There's going to be differences in opinions, right? But understanding where you fit into the equation is important. And that is what a lot of people might be seeing right now, is like how to balance the things that you can control with the things you can't. It's like you can't control if a government is trying to take away the rights of their citizens. You can't control it, okay? But you can control what you do in your daily life to have to take advantage of the freedom that you do have. There's no going back. Like people, I think are still talking about this idea of like going back to like before the pandemic. If you feel like you're trying to escape something right now and you just don't feel happy with like just doing something that used to be fun, it's okay. Maybe that's because it's not meant to just be fun the way it used to be. We live in a new world. There's a new reality. And whether that has affected you very personally or not, the pandemic has affected the world, and it's going on still. And this is something that I think we're going to really understand with this eclipse season, is like, what does this mean on a longer time frame, on a deeper level? Like, What does it mean to sign a contract? What does it mean to work at a corporation? What does it mean to invest in something? What does it mean to own something? What does it mean to share your opinion? Like, these are the things that there's no easy answer, there's no right answer, but when we start to understand how systems work, we can then start to work the systems a bit better. It's like technology is not inherently good or bad, but it has to do with the contracts and the legislation and the code that is used to make it. It has to do with the written documentation. It's like we can't ignore the fine print. We can't ignore the fine print. And so I know this is a very passionate video, but I really hope that kind of what I'm sharing here resonates in some way in your own life. It doesn't mean that you have to, you know, again, there's only so much we can do. There's only so much we can do. We all have our own lives we have to take care of and manage. And, you know, if you're like a mom, if like happy Mother's Day, it's actually Mother's Day when I'm recording this. So happy Mother's Day to all the moms in just this month. But, you know, if you're a mom, if you're a parent, if you're taking care of someone, like, there's only so many things that you can do. It's hard enough to take care of yourself, I think. So just be easy on yourself this season. But what I want to just kind of get across is it's like, one, on a bigger context in our society, you know, being able to identify the systems that are not working is the first step to being able to create a better system. But also acknowledging that it's like, if you want something the way that it needs to be, you're probably going to be the one that has to make it. Like, if we want something the way that we want it to be, we have to make it. And sometimes that means being uncomfortable, taking a role you're not ready for, doing something that is a little outside your comfort zone, but it can be what excels you into this more comfortable way of living. And that's that, again, that south node to the north node. It's like releasing things that are uncomfortable. It's like, if you're so tired of social media or the way you use social media or technology or something in your life, like, this is the time to be like, okay, I'm not going to use it that way anymore. I'm going to recreate it. I'm going to make a whole different system. You know, if you code, like, go make a whole social media app. If you, you know, write something to, like, I don't know, go write it. Go create something, make a movie that has a positive influence over someone. But overall, Mercury retrograde is going to be an important time to review things and to take your time with making decisions, not to rush into anything, not to sign something out of an emergency thinking, fear thinking. Jupiter going into Aries, again, both of those happening May 10th, and Mercury retrograde will end in June. This is going to be an initiation period for people starting something new, trying something new. It's like, don't knock yourself down before you've tried it, but allow yourself to take your time to learn something. It's like, if you're going to a new job or you're starting something new that you've never done before, you have to give yourself a grace period to understand how to do it, to give yourself some time to fail, make mistakes, okay? That's what this Jupiter and Aries period is going to be about. So don't be too worried, you know, if you take action before you're ready. It's okay. But at the same time, the best thing you can do for yourself at this point is to get into your body, get in touch with your emotions, and slow things down so that you can make a good decision. You can take the action that you need to take, and you don't feel like you have to go back and redo something, because that's what this Mercury retrograde will be leading into June, is a lot of people having to like go back on a decision, redo something, rework something, and sometimes that's just the part of life. But if you can avoid it, you know, the way you can avoid it is by being a little bit more still and taking time to see something from the bigger picture before you take action. All of that said, May is going to be a really big month. Let's now dive into the horoscopes for each sign. So Aries, it is not your season anymore, but this is a big month for you in May. If you have not already noticed that, you may have a lot of plans. You may just have a lot of things going on. And if you don't, you're going to by May 10th. That is because that is when Jupiter enters your sign. It has not been here since 2011, and it's going to be here until the end of November, and then also next year. So this is a big deal. Jupiter is going to expand things in your life. With it being in your first house, especially for Aries risings, it's about expanding you. And so some of you may notice that this actually is showing up in a certain area of your life, such as your career or your home life, because Jupiter will likely be aspecting the midheaven and the IC of your charts, especially again for Aries risings. But that said, in your first house, it's just going to deal a lot with how people perceive you, how you perceive you, the things that you want to initiate in your life, being on your path, those kind of very exciting things. So I think that if you're waiting for something to happen, it's definitely going to happen this month. Here's the thing, here's the kicker. Mercury Mercury retrograde is also happening on May 10th, and it's going to last until June. And so with that happening in your third house of communication, and even for Aries, all Aries placements, this is going to be in that connection. It will be sextile to a lot of Aries placements, which can be good, meaning you can expect maybe a comforting conversation, something that helps to bring you some closure. But at the same time, it may be likely that you will have a lot of unexpected events happen with this retrograde. And so you want to be aware of anything that could just kind of put your plans on hold. Like if you may expect something to go a certain way and it goes the opposite way. And so it's like if you have those expectations set to have something go perfectly, this is not the time to have those in your mind. It's a much better time to be open to the possibilities of life. And some of you may be going through some things that are a little bit difficult this season, because with the full moon lunar eclipse on May 15th, this is happening in your 8th house, which means that this can deal with a loss, this can deal with a grief, this can deal with getting closure on something and ending, because a lot of you are going to have your relationships expanded at this time too. Some of you may find that there's something that happens in your relationship that could cause an ending, and this may be difficult because we're dealing with this eclipse season. It is very emotional, especially around May 15th. This is because that's when we have the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio. And so this is happening right after Friday 13th. It's going to be, you know, a little bit of an eerie time. There may be some darkness in the sense of having to work through heavy emotions that you aren't familiar with, that you aren't maybe feeling prepared to handle, but you've got it. You've got it. That said, with Jupiter in your first house, this is really expanding so many different areas of your life. This is expanding your work, your career, your relationships. But again, it's also going to be about you. So this may feel like it's asking you to step up in an area of your life, to take up more space, to do something that maybe you haven't done before, to be a little bit more independent in your life, Aries. You may need to do things that you have had to rely on others for, you've needed other people for, but they may not be there anymore for what reason. And so this is an important lesson for Aries placements this month, is to embrace your independence and your autonomy, because you may have to make some decisions that are difficult to make. And when you do make those, the decision itself, like making the decision itself, may just be what is hard. Like, I don't think that the right or wrong answer is going to be the big theme. It could be, you know, but for a lot of you, it's going to be just moving through the emotions, moving through the processes, and getting through some stuff. So that said, a lot of Aries placements will be celebrating something. It's a celebration time, because Jupiter in your first house is bringing you new beginnings that are planting seeds for the next 10 or so years. Now, again, this may come with some grief. This may come with something that is ending, because Jupiter is leaving your 12th house of Pisces and of endings. And so this is where you might feel that something is having to end in order for something else to begin, and you may feel that it's a little bit uncomfortable. I talked about this in the video of just things being kind of uncomfortable right now. So you may just notice that you have to sit with some uncomfortable emotions this month. And what I would suggest is really using the support systems that you have in your life, but remembering that this is about showing up for yourself. So figuring out how you can show up for yourself in the best way. The North Node is in your second house, and the solar eclipse was in your second house, which means some of you may receive some money, or there could be something, you know, with a new job, a new opportunity. And this is going to be a good time to use your investments wisely, not to like spend right away if you're getting some money, to like save it, I would say, with the transits, because of we have a Mars retrograde in Gemini at the end of the year, which is going to be in your third house, and it may have to do with some things that go on right now. So there could be a move later in the year that you're planning right now. That said, in May, this is an important time to pay attention to the decisions you're making, but don't worry too much about, you know, making the wrong decision, because a lot of you are going to need to just be focusing more on moving through some emotions and getting through something with this full moon happening in your 8th house. So you've got this. This is all about you this month. And even if you have to process some heavy things or make some hard decisions, there's ultimately going to be some kind of win for you going on when it relates to ownership, confidence, taking advantage of something and having it work out well. So trust in yourself, trust in the resources you have around you. You've got this. Taurus placements, it is all about you. The spotlight is on you with this eclipse season. We literally just had the April 30th partial solar eclipse in Taurus, and that was like a time when there was more light in the sky. Like, it was so blinding, you can't look at it. So some of you may just be so blinding right now in the spotlight that you're taking all the attention. It really is Taurus's time. Now, that said, there's a lot of other things going on this month that might make things feel a little bit more difficult for you. It's like on the outside, things may look really good, or you may feel really great, but at the same time, you may feel like there's just some things that you have to work through, things that may even cause you to feel like you don't have a lot of energy. And this is because primarily we have Jupiter entering Aries in your 12th house. So Jupiter in Aries, very expansive. It can be a lot of things happening at once with just the nature of Aries and Jupiter together, but it's happening in your 12th house, which is a place of rest and it's a place of endings. And so on a big scale, this is about closing out a major cycle in your life, something that could have gone on for about 10, 11 years. But this is also on another side of that, looking at like internally, closing out an old way of thinking, closing out an old way of existing, or it's like habits that you've had. If you've known that you need to kick something and maybe take on some better habits, this is going to be the time to do that. And not just May, but this whole year going into 2023, because Jupiter will be in Aries basically this whole year, and the North Node, of course, will be in your sign this whole year. So the eclipse season that we have right now is leading up to the eclipse season in November. Now, again, we started with that partial solar eclipse, but this is leading up to the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio. And this is on May 15th, late May 15th into the 16th, depending on your time zone. So this is going to be a big deal for a lot of Taurus placements because it's happening in your 7th house of relationships. And so some of you may have something that does look like an ending in your relationship around this time, just to say it as it is. And that's because it's the South Node in your 7th, it's the full moon, it's Scorpio, and this has a lot to do with releasing, letting something go, leaving something behind. And with Jupiter entering your 12th house of endings, there is that essence of leaving something behind there as well. And so a lot of you might have realized that it's time to put yourself first in your life, take a chance on yourself, and this may mean that you are leaving something behind, a job, a relationship, a location, just a time of your life, you know. Allowing yourself to naturally move into this next phase of your life may require leaving some things behind. And that's likely what you're going to be dealing with this season and this month, and especially around the time I'm posting this, when we have Jupiter entering Aries on May 10th, Mercury retrograde on May 10th, and then specifically the full moon in your 7th house, full lunar eclipse on May 15th. Yeah, so if you're going through something difficult, you know, talking to someone who's been through something similar, or just getting some guidance that can help you to move through a situation you've never been for, might be necessary at this time. And that's what you might find with this Mercury retrograde. It's kind of like if you are grieving or going through something that's hard to process and you have to show up at work every day and be on your best, like, it's hard to do. And you might notice that this season, it's just asking you to show up a little bit more, and it's a little bit harder to do that right now. But at the same time, you know, again, the North Node is on your sign, in your sign. It is also, again, for Taurus rising specifically, going to be really lighting up all of the opportunities and possibilities available to you. It's going to be very lucky. And so it's like, if you do need to find a way to get out of something or figure something out, you know, you're going to find the option. You're going to figure it out. You're going to find what you need. But it may just mean that you have to have a little bit of extra stamina or energy right now to move forward with something. That's also because Aries is going to be even more activated when Mars enters Aries on May 24th. And so this is going to be good because Mars rules Aries. And so it's going to activate something. Again, you might find like maybe you're working out and it's like going really well, you're seeing results, or maybe you're practicing something with your sleep and you're finding like certain things don't help your sleep and other things do. Sleep may be a big theme for a lot of you. You may have some, honestly, you may have some intense dreams around this time specifically. Pay attention to your dreams because there could be some things that are trying to, you know, signal to you in your everyday life. But that said, with Mars and Jupiter both going to be in your 12th house, or just in Aries 12th to Taurus, this is a time, again, when you do need to make sure you're taking precaution when it relates to taking care of yourself. So if you know that if you continue doing something, it's not good for your health, or if you know if you're going to do something that's really risky, it's like now is not the time to take a huge risk, especially with money, because Mercury is going to go retrograde in your second house on May 10th and through June. This could mean that like something is a little bit delayed, contract is delayed, you have to go back and redo something, redo some work. Maybe you have to like do something before you get paid for something. So there could just be a little bit of delay with something in your life that can cause some irritation. But I would say, try and have forward and direct communication with people, because that will likely help to make things clear. So, like if you have to wait on something until a specific date, at least you know the date, that kind of thing. Yeah, but Taurus placements, this is your time to shine. So put yourself out there. If you want to take a big risk, it's not to say to not take a risk, but it's to say that this is your time to really put yourself forward. So it's like thinking about what you know is best for you, and then taking action on that is going to it's going to work out really well for you. But if you are, doing something irrationally because you're trying to rush something, that might just set you back a bit. But overall, the North Node is in your sign. It's a great time. Put yourself out there and enjoy the rest of May. Geminis, okay, it is your season starting May 20th, so you guys are probably warming up for your birthdays. That said, honestly, your birthdays might be a little bit different this year, a little unexpected because of this eclipse season. This eclipse season is happening in a place of your chart that is hard to see, meaning that it's happening in the 12th to Gemini and in the 6th to Gemini, which means that it's a time of rest for you. It's a time of kind of letting yourself surrender, but a lot of you may not want to do that right now. You may be doing quite the opposite, and that's okay. You probably have a lot of things going on, especially if you have more air and fire in your chart. There's probably a lot of things going on right now, and this has a lot to do with the fact that Jupiter is going to enter your 11th house on May 10th, and Mercury retrograde is also going to happen in your first house in Gemini, in your sign, on May 10th as well. And so this month there's just a lot of movement and action, and you may need to take some extra steps to make sure that you're planning things out correctly. At the same time, you may have like other people's plans interfere with you. For instance, like a friend may have something going on that you want to help them with, and that may take away from some time you have to yourself, and you just kind of have to adjust to that. There could be something that is going on in someone else's life that like you have to be there for them at this time. And it doesn't have to be like you have to be there for them, but it could also just be that maybe you're a little bit occupied with other people's information, other people's circumstances, what is going on in other people's lives. And if that's the case, this Mercury retrograde is probably going to bring you back around and ask you to kind of look at yourself and look at your own life. And that's because, with that happening in your first house, then going into your 12th, you're going to get a new perception on something or a new perspective. And it may be on a friendship, a friend group, because there's a lot of things going on with your friendships, with Jupiter entering your 11th house on the 10th. But it's also at the same time going to deal with you. And so it's like you might have something happen in your friendships, in a friend group, that helps you to see yourself better. And, sometimes that's not easy to do. Sometimes it's like you have to have a little bit more self-awareness. But with the eclipse, the solar eclipse that happened in your 12th house, that eclipse probably brought you a lot of self-awareness in an area of your chart where there's not usually that much self-awareness, which means a lot of you might just be learning that you are, one version of yourself, but you're also all these other versions of yourself. Gemini culture. But truly, you may be realizing right now that it's like, it's okay to change. It's okay to allow yourself to see yourself differently. It's okay to take credit for something. It's also okay to take accountability for something. In fact, a lot of you may really need to take accountability for something because with the full moon eclipse happening in your 6th house, especially for Gemini risings, this is going to activate an area of your chart that is really quite sober or sobering. It's like if you've had something that's kind of kept you in like a little bit of an illusion around something, this is going to sober things up. It's going to help you to see something clearly. It could help you or just show you that like you need to cut back on something, because Scorpio being in your 6th can mean like an excessive attachment to something like tangible. It could be work related. It could be substance related. A lot of you might notice that around this time. This can also deal with like coworkers and events at work and just kind of the daily life, daily routine. And so some of you may notice that it's like, you can have fun, but you also have to really balance your fun with taking care of yourself. And maybe you're realizing that like at this point of your life, you have to take care of yourself a bit more for whatever reason. This has a lot to do with these eclipses happening in the 12th and the 6th, because it's activating your subconscious and your body. And so it's like, for instance, if you've been having a inclination that you need to look at something health-wise or take care of something, this is going to be a time when you really need to do that, when you're just going to need to take care of what you got to take care of. So some of you may also realize that this is a time when you need to set boundaries with certain friends or certain coworkers so that you can have some more space. Or if you're dating, you may feel that you have to like set a boundary so that you can have healthier, so that you can have a healthy relationship with that person, so that you can continue to take care of yourself and also be connected to them. And this may have more to do with, like, again, you, and less to do with them this month, meaning because the Mercury retrograde is happening in your first, you may be the one that needs to just take some space. You may need to want, you may be the one who needs to set a boundary. At the same time, you know, if someone else sets a boundary with you, this is a good time to like really respect that boundary and give yourself some space too. That said, with this happening in your sixth, this could have to do with animals as well, with pets, or with kind of the in and outs of a relationship, the daily life, again, of a relationship. So just pay attention to kind of what's going on. With Jupiter entering your 11th, there's going to be a lot of opportunities coming to you. Some of you may be excelling your career, and you may find that from now until August, or until even November, you start to have some progress with your career. You get rewarded for something, you get credit for something, you finish something, you complete something. And so now's a good time to kind of look ahead and think about the bigger picture of whatever you're working on, and try not to get too distracted with things that are not good for your health. That's kind of the overall advice for Geminis this season, this May. So yeah, stay sane during this retrograde. Mercury is your sign ruler. So if something feels like crazy, out of whack, out of touch, just take a breath, take a break. Step back from it and see it from a bigger perspective, because you're going to have a really good perspective if you give yourself time to do that. Okay, have a good rest of your May. Okay, Cancers. May is a big month for you guys, but it's also asking that you take your time and you do not rush, because as Jupiter enters Aries and enters your 10th house, especially for Cancer risings on May 10th, at the same time, we have Mercury Gemini, which is going into your 12th house. And as Mercury, the planet of communication, goes into your 12th, as a Cancer placement, you may find that this is kind of frustrating and confusing unless you have a Mercury retrograde in your chart. Other than that, you're going to likely find that this is a time when you need more information to figure something out, or you're waiting on something, there's a delay. But when Mercury enters Cancer, which isn't going to happen for a minute, but that's going to be later this summer. But when that does happen, things are going to really be much more clear. And so I just want to give you a heads up that this Mercury retrograde for Cancer placements is going to be a little bit hazy and confusing, which is why you want to take your time, and which is why you want to be diligent with the things that you're doing, because as Jupiter is entering your 10th, it's at the top of your chart. And so this is a time when you might just notice that there's a lot of eyes on you, a lot of attention on you. It could be at work, it could be in your career, but it can also just be in the way that you are showing yourself to the world. And a lot of you may notice that you're being extra aware, or you could be extra aware of how other people are perceiving you, because some of you may be going through somewhat of a rebrand. Maybe you're switching careers, changing the way that you're presenting yourself, however it is. But you may notice that right now you're kind of testing the waters and seeing what something feels like, because as Jupiter enters Aries, it's just going to activate this time for you from now, really this whole year, where you can likely get some understanding about how you want to be seen by the world. Because with Jupiter in your 10th, it's like you're going to have a lot of career success, a lot of opportunities. But with Jupiter, it's like, here's more and more and more and more. It doesn't say like you have to choose this or this is the best option. It just gives you a lot of options. So you may notice that there's a lot of things available to you right now, but you have to make a decision based on who you really are or what you really want. But don't worry, you've got this. Especially with Mercury going retrograde in your 12th, there may be something that you're processing from the past, and this is going to likely help you to bring some clarity to your future if you allow yourself the space to process this. This has to do with the eclipse season, because with the full moon lunar eclipse happening in your 5th house, this can deal in the context of this full moon and like full lunar eclipse, this can deal with past romances, childhood experiences, childhood friends. This can deal with some attachments, connections to the mother, connections to family. And a lot of you may notice that something from the past stirs up a lot of emotions in you, and you have to kind of navigate how to take these past experiences and bring them into the future, or, you know, move toward the future, because the solar eclipse that happened on April 30th in your 11th house was meant to really shine a light on where you can go. It's like the 11th house is the future. So it's like, look at all of the different ways you can go. It's like, it's not over, it's just started. And Jupiter has been in your ninth, showing you also probably different perspectives on life, different ideas for what you can do, or like how you can understand the, you know, many different sides of human experience, those kind of things that we find in the ninth house. So this full moon lunar eclipse that's happening on May 15th in your fifth house, this could deal with romance specifically. Some of you may be seeing someone and something may happen with that. Could be good, could be bad, whatever. Could be relative to however you see it. But there's also likely going to be, again, something from the past though that's coming up. So it's like some of you may find that old emotions or past emotions from past experiences come up in your present relationships, offering you an opportunity to learn how to transmute that, or to not react the same way. In fact, a lot of you may actually have to really deal with how you react to things. With Mars ruling your fifth house, especially Cancer risings here, and Mars ruling this full moon, you know, with Scorpio, it's like things can feel very intense, and there can be this feeling of like, I need to react right away, I need to do something right away. But again, the real kind of lesson here is to slow down and take notice of what is going on. It's like, you don't want to do something that would hurt, like today, that's going to hurt your future if what you think you're doing today is guiding you to your future, you know? So it's like having the bigger perspective, the wider perspective on your life, on your relationships, can just be really helpful for understanding that if something happens in your personal life that causes a lot of emotions to come up, like just allowing yourself to feel, to experience, to express, to create. You know, fifth house is also creativity and music. It's like, allow yourself to translate or transmute those feelings, because it's likely going to help you to see that your path ahead is so clear. Again, the solar eclipse lit up your 11th house. It's like the North Node is in your 11th. You're meant to be seen. You're meant to move forward. It's time for the next chapter, but it does require letting go of the past. And for some people, it may just mean having a ritual, having a way to say goodbye, to say, you know, peace and be well. It's like, you know, if you're experiencing something kind of heavy, it's like having a way to just pay your respects and you know, be at peace, and, you know, give peace to something so you can move on. Yeah, Cancer risings and Cancer placements, you've got this, okay? So that said, with the Mercury retrograde happening in your 12th house, I would say overall for May, take your time, don't rush anything, because if the answer isn't here yet, it's not meant to be. It's going to show up when it needs to show up. Okay, Cancers, have a great rest of your May. Okay, Leos, let's talk about May. Now, of course, when you're watching this, we're already into May. So a lot of you may already have some things going on. And for you guys, this eclipse season is really about your home life and your work life. It's like, are they connected? Are they not connected? Do they need to be more connected, less connected? Those are the kind of things you might be asking, especially because the Mercury retrograde is going to happen in your 11th house. So this can deal with technology specifically for you guys. You might find that like something that you have that to rely on for work is broken and it's not working, and you might need to replace something. Little heads up in case that's already happened. But that said, there's also going to be an emphasis there on just like long-term projects that are playing out for you, because the North Node is at the top of your chart. It may be conjunct midheavens for a lot of you, especially, well, specifically Leo risings. In general, the solar eclipse that happened on April 30th was meant to light up your career path in a way that could show you that something that you've been putting effort into is working, or that maybe you had a new idea for something that you're implementing now. There's definitely something that was meant to be seen in your career life. At the same time, this full moon and lunar eclipse is going to be happening at the bottom of your chart for Leo risings and just in general in Scorpio. And so this is going to square Leo placements, and so did the solar eclipse, but this is going to be in a way that might cause some emotional delays or reactions that could interfere with your work life. Again, it's like if you're having a personal situation in your home and you have to work from home, that could really interfere with your work life, and you may have things that really matter. You're really, you know, you really have to get done, for instance. It's kind of like if something personal happens to you, you know, you can't just totally put your life on pause, but you might feel like you need to or you want to. Some of you may feel like this month you need to just take a break. And if you do, you know, do what you need to do. I think communication is going to be the most important. So for instance, if you have obligations that you need to attend to, something that you need to turn in on time or do, communicate with the people who need to know. Let them know what you're going through. Let them know that you have something that came up. So that you can like move forward confidently and not feel bad or distracted or left behind or anything. Because with the Mercury retrograde happening in your 11th house, it can just mean that certain projects are delayed. Something is like not clear. And so if you can kind of take initiative to be very clear about anything you're going through, anything you're experiencing right now, I think people will understand like anything that you may need to explain, but the communication will be the important part. Not communicating is what could cause some issues this month with Mercury retrograde happening in your 11th, meaning it's like if there was a deadline communicated that you understood, but someone else was expecting it to be, you know, a different deadline, that could cause some delays in your progress. But the good news is, again, with the North Node where it's at and that solar eclipse really highlighting your path, this may really look like a lot of you Leo placements are learning how to put yourself first in a way that is sustainable. It's like you're learning how to rely on your own or take care of yourself or be away from your family, not depend on your family, not depend on someone, could be in a relationship too, not depend on someone, like learning how to be a little bit more independent. But it may also come with the, you know, responsibilities of being, you know, more independent. So some of you may also realize that it's like you're learning how to find balance in your relationships, in your home life, and also get the things done you need to get done. It's like you don't want to be on the extreme of working all the time and never having time for the people you love, because then when you need, you know, the people that you love, it's like there's just an imbalance there. And on the other side, you also don't want to be so consumed with other people's lives that you aren't putting yourself first. And so this eclipse season is really helping Leo placements to learn how to put yourself first, not put someone else's life over yours, but at the same time, take initiative and be clear about what you need, about what you're doing. Tell people your plans. Definitely tell people your plans. Like if you're planning to like quit or something and you haven't communicated it with someone, it's like this, you're going to need to do that this time. And that again has to do with that Mercury retrograde. Now, good news, and it can all be great news. A lot of you are going to have a lot of career success around this time. But with the Jupiter entering Aries, Jupiter is going to be entering your 9th house. And so this is going to be expanding options for a lot of you. Jupiter was in your 8th for this year. So a lot of you might have been grieving something, getting over something, letting something go, just trying to understand something. You might have felt stuck. And now things are going to start moving. And so if you feel like you're like just kind of comfortably sitting back, you may notice that things just speed up right now and you have to keep up. But you know, Aries is a fire sign like Leo, so it's going to connect in a very positive way. So a lot of you are going to feel energized as soon as Jupiter enters Aries on May 10th. And this is going to be really great for a lot of Leo placements. I think you're going to get a new perspective on something. This could involve traveling. Some of you may just be traveling, planning traveling. It's going to go well. You know, if you travel specifically in May, you know, there is the retrograde and stuff. But in general, like this summer, if you have plans to travel, Jupiter is going to be in your 9th. So it's going to be very natural. Some of you may need to travel for something. And there could be some things that come up with that, with the Mercury retrograde that cause, you know, a delay in that. Again, more likely technology related, but overall with Jupiter in your 9th, it's in a great place. You're going to be learning more. Some of you may be enrolling in a course or taking classes or just getting through school or something. Others may be just kind of embracing a new path of knowledge. So overall, Leo placements, May is going to be a really great time to learn about what you need and what works for you, and learn how to kind of be clear in your communication, set boundaries where you need to, and express yourself, express your plans so that you can be on the same page as other people and have that balanced with your career. Yeah, okay, have a great rest of your May. Okay, Virgos, a lot of you are just settling into a new life this month. This is really about getting comfortable with the decisions you've made, the commitments you've made. And that's because Jupiter was in Pisces for all of this year until this month, until May 10th, which means that for a lot of you, especially Virgo risings, your life has probably been centered on relationships or personal growth in relationships. And maybe this could also be work related for some of you, signing a contract, signing a lease even to a new place, having some kind of new commitment in your life. And with Jupiter now entering your 8th house, this is going to be a place where it's not too clear about the way in which things are growing. It's kind of like if you were to sit and watch a flower bloom or blossom. Like it might be kind of boring because it's like, well, why isn't it going faster? Like, what is it doing? But you just, instead, you know, you leave and you go do something else, you take care of something else, and then you come back and you watch the flower and it bloomed and it's so beautiful. So that's kind of the theme really with Jupiter entering Aries in your 8th house for you guys, is that now is a time to get comfortable with the commitments you've made, settle in a bit to where you are, or make, you know, decisions, help yourself to get more acquainted with things that you need in your life. Because for a lot of you, you may just be in a new situation that isn't too comfortable. But when Jupiter's in your 8th, which it's going to be there like this whole year, this is about getting deeper into something you committed to. So it could be a commitment you made to yourself. Maybe you committed to stopping something or starting something. And this could be about, you know, deepening that connection that you made to yourself, that commitment. For a lot of you though, it is going to have to do with other people and relationships and intimacy and what that means. What I will say is that if you have any issues or troubles with intimacy and connection this month, and really through the summer even, like, it would more likely be that just this month is going to be a little awkward. This summer is likely more going to be like expanding that intimacy in a very positive way. But the Jupiter retrograde from August until November could kind of bring up some things that may be activated now, meaning if you guys have any kind of intimacy wounds, for instance, feeling insecure about something, could be sex related or just kind of connection related, anything that is feeling like a block or a wall between you and someone else, that's going to come to the surface right now. So don't fear if something comes to the surface and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to run, I need to cut this out, I need to stop this, because this is just the nature of Jupiter in your 8th. It's going to expand things for you in a way that helps you to see how you can deepen your connection to your everyday life. And for some of you, this is about just finding more gratitude. It could even be that some of you have gone through a breakup recently, and the 8th house is where you're going to find time to grieve and time to process. And so if that's the case too, it's like, no matter what, the Jupiter in your 8th is asking you to get more in touch with who you are and where you are and what you're doing. Deepen the connection you have to your emotions, to your body, to your environment. And Virgos are good at that when you're present. So just allowing yourself to kind of be present and not be rushed is going to be a really helpful thing right now. A lot of you may feel like in your personal life you have to hide something, or you're like doing things in secrecy. But this is really a time when a lot of you may just need to do some more things in private. It doesn't mean that you have to be, you know, in secrecy or anything. You're just living your life a little bit more privately. I just saw a blue jay just then, so that could be a sign for some of you guys. Oh, it's so pretty. But this could also just kind of be an indication of the throat chakra and speaking clearly, singing your song, doing things that make you feel present. Maybe some of you want to go in nature, need to go in nature a little bit. So definitely I encourage that. That said, this eclipse season is happening in your 9th and your 3rd house, and the full moon lunar eclipse is going to happen in your 3rd house. So this could look like a communication problem or a miscommunication. This could also be an accident for some of you, so do be careful. You know, be careful if you're driving, be careful with stuff like that. It's Mercury retrograde, so you want to be careful. But the eclipse season happening in your 3rd house, it's like, it could be unexpected communication. It could be something that happens with a sibling, but it doesn't have to be bad. It can be something that's very wholesome, but because it is that full moon in Scorpio, it is going to be a little uncomfortable. And this may mean having to like move somewhere or go do something that's a little bit uncomfortable. But a lot of you will find that whatever it is that happens around this time is going to help you see something clearly, and it may even give you a new perspective, because the solar eclipse that happened on April 30th was in your 9th house of new perspectives. And so a lot of you might be learning new things, enrolling in something new, going down a new path, and for the most part it's going to have a lot to do with just your daily life, learning new routines, adjusting to a new lifestyle, trusting that you can kind of get through where you're at. Now, the Mercury retrograde is going to happen in your 10th house, which this is going to have a lot to do with career for you guys. So this can also do with your career online, if you have a career online, or if you're saying something online too, because it's a very public place. This is not really the time to put all your business online. Again, I was kind of saying you might want to be a little bit more private with some stuff, just because there might be a lot of energy or activity that is incongruent with what was going on in your life. It's like you might be in a peaceful place and someone else might be in a very like high energy state, and it's just kind of of colliding and it's not translating online. At the same time, you may find that this is just like having to redo something work-wise, having to reapply to something, or to just correct something or clarify something in your work. But it's nothing to really fear. You may just find that like if you rush something, you're going to need to go back and redo it this month. So overall for Virgos, I think that this is a great time to just kind of allow yourself to be present where you are, deepen the connection with your body, with yourself. And if you're in a relationship, allow yourself to be vulnerable and to be intimate and to use communication, you know, to express the things that you need, because it's going to be successful if you can allow yourself to have those conversations. Okay, Libra placements. This is a big month for you guys and really just a big year because Jupiter is entering your 7th house of relationships on May 10th. So this is going to be a big time for a lot of you in relationships. If you're seeing someone, you could see that there's a further commitment made, or you could see that it expands somehow. At the same time, if you're not seeing someone, this likely will look like having a lot of options in romance, in love. This can also be contracts, partnerships. So a lot of you will have a lot of options starting May 10th. Now, because we have Mercury going retrograde on the same day, and this is going to happen in your 9th house, this is going to be a time when you may need to really think through a decision, especially if it has to do with travel or education. If you want to rush into something, this may be a time where things need to slow down in order to make the best decision, because with the 9th house being activated, it's like new opportunities, and with Jupiter in your 7th, it's like new opportunities, and something's going to connect. You're going to make some commitment to something. Maybe it's a relocation, a new job, a new relationship, but at the same time, there's no need to rush it. Especially with the recent solar eclipse that happened in your 8th house on April 30th. This is a place where you may have found some ending that needed to be cleared from your life, or something that's just kind of been residual in your life that you need to clear out so you can make room for someone else, or for a new idea, or for a new project, or a new path. And so the full moon lunar eclipse that's going to happen in your 2nd house, this is going to have to do with money for a lot of you, with finances. This could actually look like getting a lot of money, getting unexpected money. At the same time, for some of you, this can mean that you need to be a little bit careful with your spending, because a full moon in your 2nd can be an unexpected bill or payment that you have to make. And so it will be a good time to be aware of, you know, your money and your finances. For a lot of you, this could also have to do with something that is being passed on to you, like an inheritance even, or receiving something that you worked on previously. And so this is going to be an important time to just kind of pay attention to like the managerial things in your life around the full moon. That said, this is also about taking ownership and taking autonomy for things in your life. So on that full moon, if you feel that there's something in your life that you have been depending on a bit too heavily, this is going to be a time to release that dependence and allow yourself to be a bit more independent. It can be interdependence too, but realizing that it's like, if you want to work with someone, you have to be able to work on yourself. You have to be able to work through things on your own. It's like, if you want to be in a relationship, you have to first know the relationship you have with yourself, right? So a lot of Libras may just be dealing with those themes this month, but don't worry, because with Jupiter entering Aries, it's going to really heat things up. And so this is not a slow transit. This is going to happen this whole year, or this is not a fast transit. It's going to happen this whole year for the most part. So there's no rush to get into anything, but good things are on the way. So stay tuned, Libras. Okay, Scorpios, this is obviously a big month for you guys, as it is eclipse season, and we are having the full moon lunar eclipse happen in your sign on May 15th into the 16th. So this is going to be a big deal for Scorpios as it relates to the past and to emotions. I'm not going to lie, it's probably going to be pretty heavy. Some of you may have some unexpected events, things that you couldn't see coming, things that you have to just kind of accept and move forward with. And it may have to do with relationships in your life. Could be friendships, events in personal relationships, but it's going to definitely have something to do with relationships. Some of you may find that a relationship in your life is taking the attention, maybe you, and it's not, doesn't have to be, you know, in a negative way. It can be that you are having to be there for someone, or you're able to be there for someone. And it's important that you are there for them at this time. Some of you may find that in doing this, you're helping yourself to release blocks or barriers to allow love in. And I know that sounds very big picture, but it's eclipse season. It is big picture. And a lot of you guys might be going through some big events right now, or big emotions. And so just know that this full moon and lunar eclipse is your time to release and feel okay, to show yourself fully. So If you need to say something, feel an emotion, cry, you know, scream, let it out. If you need to reach out to someone, this is the time to do it. It's like something that you may need to just do. It just happens anyway. So just know that this eclipse season for Scorpios can be pretty intense. And with this Jupiter going into Aries in your 8th house, this can also be, or I'm sorry, not in your 8th house, 6th. With Jupiter going into your 6th house in Aries, this is going to heat up your work life and your daily life. This could deal with like physical things, having to manage physical things, having to do paperwork, documentation. It can mean that you have more responsibilities in your work life than you had before, or maybe you have more responsibilities now in your home life and in your work life, which means that you have just more going on and you have to be more on top of it. So this can have to do with an event that happens, but for a lot of Scorpio placements with Jupiter entering your 6th house, it is going to give you an opportunity to kind of develop a new habit or a new routine or do something you've really wanted to do for a long time, because it's going to kind of give you some motivation in an area of your chart that deals with systems and structures. But because of that, it may mean that a lot of you have to really redo something or set something up differently. It's like if you have a routine that just is not helping you, it's hurting you, this is the time that you're going to have to focus on that. For a lot of you, this is going to have to deal with your health. You need to really make sure you're taking care of your health. If there's something with inflammation, you'll need to pay attention with that as well, because Jupiter in the 6th can really be about inflammation for some of you. And with that said, with Mercury retrograde then happening in your 8th house, this is going to be important for just being aware of how, like, if you are not feeling okay, like if you're not feeling well rested, if you're not feeling like just emotionally okay, and then you go rush into something or put yourself into something, like it might affect other people, or it might not come off in the best way. And I don't say that in any kind of like fear, like there's nothing to fear, but more so that this is a time where you might see that because there's Mercury retrograde happening in your 8th and Jupiter happening in your 6th, this can deal with grief. This can deal with having to get over something, process an emotion that's unexpected, which may mean that you cannot show up the same way you've been showing up. You have to say to someone, hey, I can't show up that way. I've got this going on, or I can't go do that. I have to take care of this. And so you may just realize that it's like, even if you've been used to showing up in this way, now is a time where you might just need more support. You might need some help. With Mercury retrograde in your 8th, you could have some support that comes in that is unexpected, but it's likely going to be connected to emotion. So it's like, you know, it's like someone in your family could help you with something, but there may be a lot of emotions tied to that kind of makes it complicated. That said, overall, Scorpios, with this eclipse happening in your sign and the solar eclipse that happened in your 7th house, this is a time to really allow yourself to be vulnerable and to trust that if you open up, you're going to find some kind of resolution. You're going to feel that you can move forward. Scorpio, it's a water sign, but it's also a fixed sign. So it's meant to move, but it can get a little stuck. So some of you may feel that like now is the time where you're being forced to move and you got to like move something. Things are changing in your life, even if you don't want them to. But if you can accept that and allow that change, I think a lot of you are going to feel very, very rewarded or just very grateful for the things that you do have in your life, especially by November and going into next year. So you've got the Scorpio placements, feel the feels to face it, because it's going to probably make sense down the line. Okay, have a good May. Sagittarius placements, I won't lie, this May looks like it has a lot to do with your love life and maybe with some past love life things as well. Yes, I'm talking about Mercury retrograde X's coming up. This has to do with the 7th house being activated by Mercury retrograde starting May 10th. So for Sagittarius placements, this is happening in a place for you guys that deals with relationships. And because it's retrograde, because it's Mercury retrograde, it's going to deal with past relationships. So some of you may have a conversation that you've really needed to have, and this can be very great. This can bring in some closure, especially because Jupiter will be entering your 5th house, coming out of your 4th house. So it's been in a place of emotions for a lot of you, meaning you may be processing emotions, could have had to do with home or family or the past, but now it's going to be moving into your 5th house, which is about dating. It's about putting yourself out there. It's about being seen in a lot of ways that really feel true to who you are. So it's like expressing yourself truly and being like rewarded for that emotionally. Now, that said, because this has to do with other things related to the childhood and like early childhood experiences and beliefs and the mother and parents, and dating experiences. Again, for a lot of you, this month is about processing the past relationships that you've had, or getting closure, or even some of you will be reconnecting with exes, maybe making a relationship work that didn't work before. But just be aware that anything that you're kind of moving forward right now, it's also going to come with this need to process things that have happened. So it's like, if there's a conversation you need to have that you've put off, that you just never want to have, it's going to need to be had right now, especially again with this Mercury retrograde in your 7th house. So some of you may be the ones initiating it. You're like, I'm ready to just talk. It's time to just have this conversation. You know, life is short. Others may need to realize that like someone's going to hit you up, or you're going to receive some communication that could make it easy to react or respond quickly. But what you'll likely be more successful with is taking a moment to really think about like what you want to say, because words do matter, you know, sometimes, and really, let's say all the time. And with this Mercury retrograde, words can really matter. And so if you have a conversation, it's like, you never know if that conversation is the like last conversation you have with someone for a while. So being aware of kind of what you're saying can be important, because this retrograde is going to make things a little crazy. And with Jupiter, you know, being on fire in Aries in your 5th house, a lot of you might have like a new relationship, or you're dating someone, but it's like you don't want to bring that old stuff into your present relationship. And you also don't want to be dating someone who has all that old stuff going on too, really. So using communication to kind of express your needs and your boundaries, but also to like use it for your own processing, like have a conversation you need, you know, express something you need to say. Like this is going to be a really good time to do that. That said, the eclipses are happening in your 12th and your 6th house, which is about rest and sleep and health. And it's in a place of your chart that's a little bit hard to see, which means that it's like if you're doing too much, if you have too many projects, too many commitments, if you're dating too many people, it's like you might find that that does not help you out by the end of this month, because especially around the May 15th eclipse that's happening in your 12th house, this is going to be a time where things from the past will be coming up, but it can also illuminate things that you need to do for your health. It's like if something from the past is coming back to tempt you, and maybe it wasn't good for you, like it could be a habit, a person, a thing, something that you did, you know, it's the time to release that, not to go forward with that again. It's like if you want to reconnect with someone, trying to reconnect with them in the same way that you used to be, or in the same way that they used to be, isn't going to be helpful right now. But some of you may have reconnections that just have to happen, or you may have an ending that just has to happen, and maybe there's not a lot of explanation. You just have to kind of move through the emotions of it. You know, life is hard. There's things that happen that we can't explain, and it's unexpected, and this eclipse season, there's a lot of those things. So a lot of you may just notice right now that like you have to be more gentle with yourself when it comes to processing your past instead of running from it, because there may be events that cause you or force you to stay present or look at the reality of something. And it's kind of like if you have rose-colored glasses on, they're going to come off this month. So just be aware of it, because Jupiter in your 5th house wants to reward you for your emotional progress and growth. It wants you to have a happy little love life. You're going to meet people if you're single. You're going to expand your relationship if you're dating someone. But it also is going to require that with this eclipse season, that you're also able to release the past, release the attachments. It's like if you're trying to start a relationship with someone, but you're still hanging on to your ex, this is the time to release them. And if you don't, you might notice that it really does reveal to you how that is going to stop you from moving forward. Okay, Sagittarius placement. So overall, enjoy your time with in your love life, and enjoy your May, but also be aware that some things that may appear to be in the present may actually be from the past this month. So just be aware, and you guys are going to be great. Okay, Capricorn placement. So this month looks like a lot of you are going to be moving, or there's something that is dealing with a big movement in your life. Could be internal, but it can also really be external. And this has to do with primarily the Mercury retrograde and Jupiter entering Aries, which will be happening simultaneous. So Jupiter will be entering Aries in your 4th house on May 10th, and Mercury will be going retrograde in your 6th house. So with the 4th and the 6th connected like this, it looks like it could deal with where you're living, definitely something with the home or with family, something from the past even, or habits or routines. Some of you may be waiting for an opportunity to kind of like move somewhere, or even like remodel a house or work on something where you're living, and this is going to give you an opportunity to do that. At the same time, the 4th house also deals with emotions, and so a lot of you may find that this is a time when you're being asked to make decisions and maybe remove some emotions that could be clouding your vision. And this has a lot to do with the fact that eclipse season is happening in the 11th and 5th house to Capricorn. So for Capricorns, especially with this full moon lunar eclipse that's happening on May 15th in Scorpio, May 15th to the 16th, this is going to illuminate the 11th house for Capricorns, which is about the future. But it's opposite the 5th house, where Capricorns had a solar eclipse happen in Taurus on April 30th. And so the 5th house can deal with the past. And so for a lot of Capricorn placements right now you're being asked to identify what you need to release in order to accept your present or your future. And this is a big theme for a lot of people, but specifically because it's highlighting this 5th and 11th house, it's like some Capricorn placements may notice that you're looking at something from the view of a previous version of yourself, like someone who knew less, someone who didn't have as much experience as you do now. And so a lot of you may notice that, like, if you're still idolizing something from your childhood or someone from your childhood or a relationship, this month may reveal to you that, like, what you thought you wanted may not be exactly what you wanted, or who you thought you wanted to be with may not actually be who you want to be with. That's okay. But the full moon that is happening in your 11th house is likely going to show you that there are more options out there for you. This could be more options with, like, a job you're looking for, a location, a home, or in friendships, because the 11th house really deals with friendships as well. In fact, a lot of you may actually have this full moon event really deal with a past friendship. There could be something from the past that comes up, someone that you communicate with, that you grew up with, or someone that you've known for a long time, or you could be meeting somebody new who reminds you of someone from the past. Overall, there's a sense of processing emotions right now in a way that allows you to move forward, because with Capricorn placements, because you're ruled by Saturn, sometimes things can feel like they're going to stick with you forever. But this eclipse season is really asking you to trust that you can release that expectation that you had, or the role that you had to play, or the emotion that you're holding on to. You can release it, you can surrender to it, because there's going to be more fulfilling realities. It's like if you've had an amazing moment, you know, it's easy to get nostalgic about something like, oh, it's never gonna be that good, or wow, it's so great. But if you're too focused on that moment, then you close yourself off to enjoying whatever moment is here in front of you. So for a lot of Capricorn placements, this is gonna be a very refreshing eclipse season. It's going to help you to activate some parts of your life that have maybe felt a bit stagnant, and it's gonna build up to some bigger wins for you in November. And so right now is just a really great time to be aware of how much progress you've made. Look at how far you've come, because it might help you to see that, like, a perspective you have right now isn't actually the perspective that is true to who you are, where you are. It's like, for instance, if you're looking at something from a past version of yourself, like through the lens of your younger self, of your inner child, perhaps, you know, there's a time and a place for that. But to be able to get a bigger perspective and see that you've grown so much, you've learned so much, you're not who you used to be, you're not a kid anymore. These are the kind of things that are going to help you to actually move forward progressively this month. So enjoy eclipse season. It's not all bad, I promise. Okay, Aquarius placements. So this month is going to pull and push at a lot of different areas of your life, in romance and dating, but also in home and work. Some of you may be working on a big project right now, which has to do with the eclipses happening in your 10th house and in your 4th house. But with this full lunar eclipse that is going to be happening at the top of your chart on May 15th, for a lot of you, this could look like a big career change, a job ending, something that you've been working on. It could also just be that you complete it and now it's time to move on. It's like you finish a degree or you finish a project, you're being promoted, it's time to move on. At the same time, the solar eclipse that happened at the beginning of the month at the bottom of your chart likely showed you that there's something that is more available to you in your environment or in your home or in your family life that is going to be more fulfilling. So for instance, like realizing that you want to spend more time with certain people, or even realizing that you need to put yourself in a different environment to feel more safe or more whole or whatever it is. And so for a lot of you right now, this month is about realizing that some changes are inevitable in your life, but it's okay to congratulate yourself. It's okay to be proud of how far you've made it, because you're likely going to be making a transition that is going into something more sustainable for you as an Aquarius, because especially Aquarius risings with Saturn in your sign still, now's the time to be building. And so a lot of you need to maybe just look at what you've built so far and kind of be proud of how far you've come and how far it has come. because this month might take your attention away from work. And this is because that eclipse that is happening for you at the top of your chart will definitely have to do with work, but because there's a Mercury retrograde that's going to be going on in your 5th house of relationships or of dating and of kind of like fun and stuff, you might notice that things are distracting you from work, or there's something that's going on in your personal life that is causing a bit of a confusion in your work life or in your home life even. So there's just a sense of needing to maybe decipher between like getting work done and partying or playing, or, you know, having priority over, like in a relationship over another relationship. For instance, putting someone first, but putting your work over someone else. That may not make total sense, but for Aquarius placements in general, with Jupiter entering your 3rd house, this is going to be a time when a lot of you guys are speaking up. You're having more clarity about what you want to say. You know how you want to position yourself. If you're an artist of some sort, you may notice that you're working on a project this month with Mercury in your 5th house going retrograde. It could be like, there could be a holdup. Maybe you thought you wanted to do something and you decide you wanted to do something else. That's okay. But overall, with Jupiter entering your 3rd, it's going to really expand your local environment wherever you are. If you've been working on something, it's going to expand that, but it's also going to give you the microphone. So it's going to give you an opportunity to express yourself, to say something. So for a lot of you Aquarius placements, this eclipse season now going into November is going to really be about expressing yourself, launching something, or putting yourself out there. So enjoy the month of May, because any changes that are happening are definitely setting you up for a much fuller home or home life or work or reality. Okay, Pisces placements, again, last but never least, this season, this May, this month is really going to help you guys to move forward with whatever plans that you have been making. Jupiter has been in your sign this year, which means that it's probably shown you a lot of options. Maybe it was too much. Maybe you've had too much going on. Well, Jupiter is going to enter your 2nd house to Aries on May 10th. And so this is going to expand the things that you have initiated. So if you made a decision, if you invested in something, if you bought something, if you're planning to do that, this is likely going to really be illuminated this month for you. And so for a lot of you, this could look like, you know, you have to make a big payment or a big investment in something. And this could show you where like making that investment, you know, obviously money you spend here can't go somewhere else. And so some of you may be noticing that like you have to look at your finances a bit closer this month. But at the same time, with Jupiter, it's expanding things, it's growing things, it's giving you more options. And so as it enters your 2nd house of money, especially for Pisces risings, this is going to give you more options. So it's like you could see that an investment you made before starts to pay off. You start to see the results of it. At the same time, this Mercury retrograde that will happen on the same day, May 10th, is happening in your 4th house of home and family. And so for some of you, you could have something come up with your home, where you're living, or with your family that does cause a distraction or a delay, or it's like you just have something that you have to deal with. And this could be something that can be a bit emotional as well, because it will be in your 4th house. Could be a conversation that you need to have with someone that is just a little bit rocky, but having it will likely be, you know, very helpful. There could be details that you need to work out with something, especially if it relates to like where you're living or a house. If you've been working on something, building something, it's going to start coming to fruition. Like it's going to start showing up, especially as Jupiter moves more into Aries through the summer. But right now you're being asked to just be aware of the investments that you're making and the investments that you've made. This eclipse season is happening in your 9th and your 3rd house. And with this full moon solar eclipse happening in your 9th house, this is going to be about getting a new perspective on where you're living, what you're studying, what you want to do. Some of you might be trying to kind of figure out what you want to do next. And this eclipse is going to help you to see something that is available to you. And you might see that there's a new career path. There's a new route for studying something. There's something you never saw was possible that just shows up in your life. And so for Pisces placements, because you know you're water and we have this water earth eclipse season, this is really going to be pretty expansive for you guys. It's going to help you to see that it's like the hard work you've done has paid off. Maybe it's like you receive recognition for something because you worked on something so long, and now you're seeing how it's like all that work paid off, because now that is something that people know you for. It's like it's on your resume, or something that you invested in just comes back and like multiplies. Like if you made a crypto investment, it could like do really well May into June perhaps. So that said, for Pisces placements, this month is really about understanding that there's opportunities and options in your life. And so if you feel like you aren't seeing any, look in a different direction, because eclipse season in your 9th and 3rd is asking you to get a new perspective. But I think a lot of you have probably already got that. So it's really just about knowing that your rewards are coming in. So stay in there. All right. Thank you everybody for watching these horoscopes. And if you would like more content for May and just in general, you can go to my Patreon and become a member. And this means a lot for me. This is how I am able to do these videos. I'm in a lot of transitions in my own life right now, so all of your support really helps and matters to me. And as that grows, I try to also increase the content and the time that I put into it. So right now there is a May guide for horoscopes that covers some of the stuff I talked about in here that you can look at, and there will be more information on my Patreon as well. But thank you so much for watching these horoscopes. Have a great rest of your May.